The cold Arctic wind howled outside as Do-hyun Kim checked the readings on his engineering equipment one more time. The numbers didn't make sense. He had been working at this remote research station for 3 months, studying ways to improve solar panel efficiency in extreme cold. But today, something was different. "That's impossible," he muttered, tapping the screen of his device. The energy readings showed a power source coming from deep under the ice, but nothing that big should be there. Do-hyun pulled his thick winter coat tighter and grabbed his safety gear. As a former Special Forces operator, he knew better than to ignore strange readings. The sun was setting, painting the endless ice in shades of orange and pink. Do-hyun's boots crunched in the snow as he followed the signal. It grew stronger as he walked about half a kilometer from the research station. He stopped at a spot that looked just like any other patch of ice and snow. Do-hyun took out his ground-scanning equipment and swept it over the area. The screen showed a large metal structure buried 20 meters below. His heart began to beat faster. This was no natural formation, and it definitely wasn't part of any human research project he knew about. He radioed back to the station. "Base, this is Kim. I'm going to need the heavy drilling equipment." He paused, thinking about how crazy his next words would sound. "I think I found something that shouldn't be here." 2 hours later, Do-hyun and his small team had cleared away enough ice to reveal a smooth metallic surface. It was dark gray and didn't look like any metal they had seen before. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, definitely not in any human language. "Should we call this in?" asked one of his teammates, looking nervous. Do-hyun was about to answer when a low humming sound started coming from the structure. The symbols began to glow with a soft blue light. The team stepped back, but Do-hyun moved closer, his military training kicking in. He needed to understand what they were dealing with. Suddenly, a beam of light shot up from the structure into the dark Arctic sky. Do-hyun's radio crackled with urgent messages from the base. Similar beams were appearing all over Earth, in remote locations on every continent. That's when they heard it, a message broadcasting on all frequencies, in every language on Earth. Do-hyun listened to the Korean version, his face growing more serious with each word. "People of Earth, this is the Galactic Elite Council. Your world has been under observation. The time has come to evaluate your species for potential membership in our Federation." The message went on to explain that representatives would arrive in 7 days. Do-hyun looked at the glowing structure, then at his shocked teammates. He had a bad feeling about this. Years of military experience had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now they were telling him that Earth was in danger. Back at the research station, screens showed news reports from around the world. More monitoring stations had been found in the Sahara Desert, the Amazon rainforest, and the depths of the oceans. Each one had activated at the same time, revealing a network that had been watching humanity for who knew how long. Do-hyun spent the night sending reports and making calls to his old military contacts. He knew humanity needed to prepare, but for what? Were these aliens really coming to welcome Earth into their federation, or did they have other plans? As he worked, more information came in. The aliens called Earth a Deathworld, a planet so dangerous that most galactic species couldn't survive here. They seemed surprised, maybe even scared, that humans could live in such conditions. Do-hyun looked out the window at the harsh Arctic landscape. To him, it was just another challenge to overcome, but he was beginning to understand that what humans considered normal might be terrifying to these aliens, and that could be either humanity's greatest weakness or its greatest strength. The next 7 days would change everything. Humanity was about to learn its place in the galaxy, for better or worse. And Do-hyun Kim, who had only wanted to improve solar panels, found himself at the center of it all. Ha-Yun Park had never seen anything like it in her 15 years as a xenobiologist. The alien tissue samples under her microscope were unlike any living thing on Earth. She worked in her lab at the International Science Center in Seoul, where the world's top scientists had gathered to prepare for the arrival of the galactic elite. Their cell structure is so delicate, she said to herself, making notes on her tablet. The alien cells broke apart under normal Earth gravity. Even the air pressure in the lab had to be lowered for the samples to remain stable. A knock on the lab door interrupted her work. "Dr. Park, they're here," her assistant said, looking nervous. "The elite delegation has landed." Hei-yun quickly saved her work and headed to the main conference room. On the screens, she could see the alien ships landing in major cities around the world. Their vessels were beautiful, like silver teardrops falling from the sky. But Hei-yun noticed something odd. The ships never fully landed. They hovered about 2 meters above the ground. The first elite representatives stepped out onto floating platforms. They were tall and slim, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer. They wore what looked like special suits, probably to protect them from Earth's environment. Hei-yun remembered her tissue samples and understood why. The Seoul delegation was led by an elite official who introduced himself as Sub-Counselor Mev. "We are honored to meet you," he said through a translation device. "Though we must admit, your world presents unique challenges." Hei-yun watched as the elite representatives struggled to move in Earth's gravity. Their steps were slow and careful, even with their special suits. One of them stumbled, and Hei-yun rushed to help. But when she touched the alien's arm, he jerked away in shock. "Please maintain distance," Mev said quickly. "Your species' strength could easily harm us." He looked at Hei-yun with what seemed like fear in his large silver eyes. The meeting continued, but things only got worse. After 30 minutes, several elite representatives began showing signs of distress. Their breathing became labored, and their skin lost its shine. The delegation quickly retreated to their ships, cutting the meeting short. Later that day, Hei-yun received an urgent message. The Elite Council wanted her research on human biology. She sent them her basic findings, including details about how humans adapted to Earth's harsh conditions. The response she got back was troubling. "These readings must be wrong," the elite scientists claimed. "No sentient species could evolve in such extreme conditions. The pressure, the gravity, the temperature variations. It's impossible." Hei-yun tried to explain that humans not only survived but thrived in these conditions. She showed them how human cells were reinforced to handle Earth's gravity, how our bodies could manage extreme temperature changes, and how our immune systems fought off countless microscopic threats. Each explanation seemed to make the elite more uncomfortable. Hei-yun overheard one of them calling Earth a death trap, and humans dangerously resilient. That evening, she met with Do-hyun Kim, who had flown in from the Arctic. They shared their concerns over a quiet dinner in her lab. "They're afraid of us," Do-hyun said, looking at Hei-yun's research data. "Not just afraid," Hei-yun replied. "They don't understand us. Everything that makes Earth home to us is dangerous to them. Our normal is their nightmare." Do-hyun nodded grimly. "And scared people often do stupid things." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert on Hei-yun's computer. The Elite Council had just classified Earth as a Level 10 death world, their highest danger rating. With this classification came a recommendation: Earth should be quarantined, and its inhabitants contained. Hei-yun looked at her tissue samples, then at the alert. "They call themselves the Elite," she said quietly, "but I don't think they understand what real strength is." Outside her lab window, the elite ships glowed in the night sky, beautiful but threatening. The first contact with alien life should have been a moment of joy. Instead, humanity's greatest strength, its ability to survive and adapt, had become its greatest threat in the eyes of the galaxy. Taiwan Lee stood at the command deck of his freighter, the Star Runner, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. His ship carried supplies to the lunar colonies, but today's cargo was different. Hidden among the regular shipment were secret messages and data drives from Earth's scientists. The elite ships patrolling Earth's orbit paid little attention to his old freighter. To them, it looked too primitive to be worth noticing. That was exactly what Taiwan wanted them to think. After 20 years of flying space cargo, He knew that sometimes the best way to hide was to look unimportant. As his ship passed the elite patrol, Taiwan noticed something odd. The patrol ships kept their distance from Earth, staying in carefully planned orbits that kept them in weaker gravity zones. He smiled, remembering what He Yun had told him about their weakness to Earth's gravity. His radio crackled with a message in Korean. "Star Runner, this is Luna Base. You are cleared for landing in Bay 12. The voice belonged to his old friend at the lunar colony, but it sounded tense. When Taiwan landed, he understood why. The lunar base was filled with nervous activity. Scientists and workers huddled in small groups, talking in whispers. Elite observers walked through the halls, their environmental suits making soft humming sounds. In a quiet storage room, Taiwan met with Du Hyun and He Yun, who had arrived earlier on a different ship. "The situation is worse than we thought," He Yun said, showing them her tablet. "The elite aren't just afraid of Earth. They're afraid of any planet that produces strong, adaptable life." Do Hyun nodded. "I've made contact with some friendly aliens. There are other worlds like Earth out there. The elite call them all Deathworlds, and they've been slowly cutting these worlds off from the rest of the galaxy." Taiwan thought about all his years flying through space. "The shipping routes," he said suddenly. "I always wondered why some star systems were marked as restricted. Those must be the other Deathworlds." "Exactly," He Yun said. "And now Earth is being added to that list. The elite are calling it a quarantine, but it's really a prison." Taiwan pulled out his own tablet and showed them his shipping charts. "I know these routes better than anyone. If there are other worlds like Earth out there, we can find them. My ship may look old, but it's tough. We can handle conditions that would break those fancy elite ships." They spent the next few hours planning. Taiwan's freighter would become their secret link to the outside world. The elite might control the main space lanes, but there were always smaller, harder routes that only experienced pilots knew about. "We'll need help," Du Hyun said. "Not all aliens agree with the elite. Some of them must see how wrong this is." As if answering his words, Taiwan's tablet lit up with a message. It came from a small trading post near Mars, sent by an alien merchant he had known for years. The message was simple: "We stand with Earth." More messages followed from other contacts across the solar system. Aliens who had traded with humans, who had seen their strength and creativity, were ready to help. The elite's perfect order was starting to show cracks. "They think they can lock us away and forget about us," Taiwan said, looking at all the messages of support. "But they forget something important. People who evolve on tough worlds don't give up easily." As they finished their meeting, alarms started ringing through the lunar base. The elite ships were changing their positions, forming what they called a quarantine line around Earth's orbit. They thought they were creating a cage, but instead, they were giving birth to a resistance. Taiwan headed back to his ship, his mind already plotting safe routes through dangerous space. The elite might control the galaxy now, but they had never faced anything like humans before. And thanks to his shipping network, Earth wouldn't face them alone. Jia Choi stood in the underground command center, watching dozens of screens showing elite ships around Earth. As a military strategist, she had spent years planning for possible wars. But she never expected to plan a defense against aliens who could barely handle Earth's gravity. "Look at how they move," she said to Moon Soo Kang, who sat at a computer analyzing alien technology. "Their ships always stay in the weakest gravity areas. They're afraid to come too close to Earth." Moon Soo nodded, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "Their technology is amazing, but it's all built for perfect conditions. They've never had to make things tough enough for a world like ours." Jaya walked over to his screen, where he was studying the design of an elite environmental suit. The suits were beautiful, like pieces of art. But they were also complicated and fragile. One small problem could make the whole system fail. "Can we use that?" she asked, pointing to the suit's air filtration system. Moon Soo smiled. "I think we can. Their suits can't handle Earth's air pressure, but that's not their only weakness. He showed her more data about elite technology. Everything they built assumed perfect conditions. Their ships needed special shields just to handle small space rocks. Their weapons weren't designed to work in strong gravity. Even their computers could break if they got too hot or cold. They've made themselves too perfect, Jaya said, understanding the problem. They've forgotten how to handle difficult conditions. She gathered her team of military planners and scientists. Together, they started working on ways to use Earth's harsh conditions as weapons. They didn't need fancy alien technology. They just needed to use what Earth had given them. A week later, they got their chance to test their ideas. 3 elite ships moved closer to Earth, planning to set up a new monitoring station. Jia watched from the command center as their plan went into action. First, they launched what looked like normal communication satellites. The elite ships ignored them, thinking they were too primitive to be dangerous. But these satellites had a secret. They could create small gravity disturbances, just enough to push the elite ships into slightly stronger gravity zones. The elite crews started to panic as their ships drifted closer to Earth. Their perfect systems weren't designed for these conditions. Alarms went off as their equipment started to fail. Now for part 2, Moon Su said, pressing a button. The satellites released clouds of what looked like dust. Actually, it was a mix of materials designed by Moon Su. When it touched the elite ship shields, it didn't try to break through them. Instead, it stuck to them, making them work harder and harder to maintain their perfect environment. Within an hour, all 3 elite ships had to retreat. They couldn't handle the combination of stronger gravity and their failing systems. Earth had won its first battle without firing a single shot. Send the recording to Taiwan, Jaya told her team. The other Deathworlds need to see this. The elite aren't invincible. They're just used to everything being perfect. That night, as she looked at the stars through the command center's window, Jaya thought about what they had learned. The elite had spent so long making perfect technology that they had forgotten something important. Real strength comes from handling imperfect conditions. They call us primitive, she said to Moon Su as they planned their next move. But we know something they've forgotten. Life isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about learning to overcome them. Messages started coming in from other resistance groups around Earth. Everyone wanted to know about their success. Jia smiled as she read them. The elite had meant to isolate Earth, but instead, they had given humans a reason to work together like never before. Haeyun Park sat in her lab, surrounded by screens showing data from Earth's long history. She had been studying how life on Earth had changed over millions of years. Each piece of information told a story of survival against tough odds. Look at this, she said to Do-hyun, who had just returned from a secret meeting with alien allies. Earth has gone through 5 mass extinctions. Each time, life didn't just survive, it came back stronger. Do-hyun looked at the charts on her screen. They showed how Earth's creatures had faced terrible challenges. Times when the planet froze, times when it was too hot, times when the air changed completely. But life always found a way to adapt. Humans are special, Haeyun explained, pulling up new data. We came from a line of creatures that survived all these challenges. Our bodies can handle more things going wrong than any other smart species in the galaxy. She showed him pictures of human cells next to elite cells. The difference was clear. Human cells had many backup systems, ways to repair damage, and features that helped them work even when things weren't perfect. Elite cells were more efficient but needed everything to be just right. It's like building a house, Haeyun said. The elite built beautiful glass mansions that need perfect weather. We built strong shelters that can handle storms. Their conversation was interrupted when Ta-1 called from his ship. His face appeared on a screen, looking excited. Haeyun, you need to see this, he said, sending her some files. I found other Deathworld species. They're hidden, but they're out there. Haeyun opened the files. They showed alien life forms that looked very different from humans but shared similar traits. They all came from planets with changing conditions, dangerous weather, and strong gravity. Like humans, they had evolved to be tough. The elite have been keeping these species apart, Taiwan explained. They don't want us to know about each other. They're afraid we might work together. Heiyun studied the new information carefully. Some of these species lived on worlds even harsher than Earth. They had amazing abilities. Some could survive extreme heat or cold. Others could heal quickly from injuries. And some could even eat things that would kill most creatures. "We're not alone," she said, understanding what this meant. "There are others like us out there." The elite didn't just quarantine Earth. They've been doing this to every world that produces strong life forms. Do-hyun looked at the star map showing where these other Deathworld species lived. "We need to contact them," he said. "The elite keep us separate because they know together we'd be too strong for them." Heiyun nodded, already planning how to reach out to these other species. They would need to be careful. The elite watched everything, but they also had a weakness. They couldn't follow ships into areas they considered too dangerous. "The elite think they're perfect," Heiyun said, looking at all the data. "But nature doesn't care about perfect. It cares about being able to survive when things go wrong. That's what makes Deathworlders special. We're built to handle problems." She sent her findings to Jia and Moon-Soo at the Defense Command Center. This information would help them plan better ways to fight back. The elite's weakness wasn't just in their technology. It was in how they thought about strength and survival. "We need to show the galaxy a different way," Heiyun said as she worked. "Being perfect isn't the same as being strong. Real strength comes from facing challenges and learning to overcome them." Outside her lab window, she could see elite ships still hovering in their safe zones above Earth. They thought they were containing a dangerous species. Instead, they were about to learn what real adaptation looked like. Taiwan Lee checked the systems of his modified freighter one last time. The Star Runner didn't look impressive from the outside, but inside, it was a different story. Moon-Soo had helped him add special features that made the ship tougher than any elite vessel. "All ships report ready," his communications officer said. 20 other human ships waited nearby, hidden in Earth's shadow. Each one carried supplies and messages for other Deathworld species. Today, they would break through the elite's blockade. The plan was simple but clever. Jia had studied how the elite ships moved, always staying in safe areas where gravity was weak. The human ships would use paths that the elite thought were too dangerous to patrol. "Remember," Taiwan told his crew, "we don't need to fight them. We just need to show them they can't stop us." He looked at his screen, where Heiyun's research findings were displayed. The elite weren't built for long battles or tough conditions. They would retreat rather than risk their perfect ships. The mission began as the Earth turned, creating a shadow that helped hide the human fleet. Taiwan led his ships toward a gap in the elite's patrol line. As expected, the elite ships stayed in their safe zones, leaving paths open that they thought no one would dare to use. But something went wrong. An elite scout ship spotted them earlier than planned. Soon, alarms were ringing across space as the elite fleet moved to stop them. "Stay calm," Taiwan told his crews. "Use what makes us different from them." The human ships spread out, moving into areas with stronger gravity. The elite ships tried to follow but started having problems. Their shields flickered as they struggled with conditions they weren't built to handle. The Star Runner shook as it pushed through a dense field of space debris. The elite ships fired their weapons, but their targeting systems couldn't work well in the strong gravity. Most of their shots missed. The few that hit bounced off the reinforced hulls of the human ships. "They're trying to trap us," Taiwan's navigator warned. A group of elite ships was moving to block their path forward. But Taiwan smiled. He had been waiting for this. "All ships, execute Operation Pressure," he ordered. The human fleet split into 3 groups. Each group flew into areas that the elite considered extremely dangerous, paths with strong gravity, magnetic fields, and space debris. The elite commanders had to make a choice: follow the humans into dangerous space or let them escape. They chose to follow, and that was their mistake. As the elite ships pushed their systems too hard, things started going wrong. Their perfect engines couldn't handle the stress. Their shields failed. Their crews began to panic. "Look," someone on Taiwan's bridge said, pointing at the screens. The elite ships were retreating. Their commanders had decided that catching the humans wasn't worth damaging their expensive ships and risking their crews. Taiwan watched as his fleet broke through the blockade. For the first time, the elite's quarantine had failed. But he knew this was more than just an escape. They had shown the galaxy something important. The elite could be beaten. As the Star Runner led the fleet into deep space, Taiwan sent a message back to Earth. "The path is open," he wrote, "and we've learned something valuable. The elite's greatest weakness is their fear of imperfection." Behind them, the elite ships regrouped, their crews shocked by what had happened. They had lost their first space battle not because the humans had better weapons, but because humans could handle conditions that the elite had never prepared for. "Set course for the nearest death world," Taiwan ordered. It was time to meet their allies and show the galaxy that being perfect wasn't the same as being strong. Moon Su Kang moved quietly through the dimly lit corridors of the elite research station. Thanks to He Yun's discoveries about elite biology, he wore a special suit that made him look like one of them. The blue-tinted skin covering and height enhancers were uncomfortable, but they worked. None of the elite scientists gave him a second look. The research station floated in space far from any planet, where the elite could maintain their perfect conditions. Moon Su had spent weeks studying their security systems. He knew he had only one chance to find what they were hiding. His target was Dr. X's private laboratory. The elite ships had been bringing samples and data there from all across the galaxy. Something about those samples had made Dr. X very worried, enough to increase security around his lab. Moon Su waited until the night cycle when most of the station slept. The elite were so sure of their superiority that they never expected someone to sneak into their most secure facility. His fake ID card, made using technology reverse-engineered from elite devices, worked perfectly. Inside Dr. X's lab, Moon Su found something unexpected. The walls were lined with containers holding creatures from different worlds. But these weren't just any creatures. They were failed experiments. The elite had been trying to change them, to make them more perfect. They'd been doing this for thousands of years, Moon Su whispered as he copied files from Dr. X's computer. The elite hadn't evolved naturally to be perfect. They had used genetic engineering to remove what they saw as flaws. Generation after generation, they had changed themselves to need less food, to never feel too hot or cold, to live longer. But there was a price for this perfection. Each change made them more dependent on controlled environments. They couldn't handle natural worlds anymore. That's why they feared Deathworlders so much. We reminded them of what they had lost. Moon Su found Dr. X's personal logs. The elite scientist had been studying samples from Earth and other Deathworlds. What he found had terrified him. Natural evolution had made Deathworlders stronger than anything the elite could engineer. Our bodies could heal damage, fight off diseases, and adapt to new conditions in ways the elite had forgotten. We thought they were advanced, Moon Su said to himself as he downloaded more files. But they're trapped. They made themselves so perfect that they can't change anymore. An alarm suddenly blared through the station. Someone had noticed the unauthorized computer access. Moon Su quickly finished the download and headed for his escape route. As he ran, he sent the files to his hidden ship's computer. Even if they caught him, the truth would get out. Elite security forces filled the corridors, but they moved slowly and carefully, afraid of damaging their perfect environment. Moon Su ran past them, his human muscles and bones easily handling the strain. By the time they realized he wasn't one of them, he had reached his ship. The elite tried to stop him from leaving, but their weapons and ships couldn't work well this close to the station's artificial gravity field. Moon Su's small ship, built to handle tough conditions, slipped away into space. Hours later, safe in hyperspace, Moon Su sent the files to Earth. The elite's greatest secret was out. They weren't superior beings who had evolved beyond everyone else. They were prisoners of their own perfection, afraid of the natural strength they had given up. Jaya needs to see this, he said, sending a special message to the Defense Command Center. The elite aren't invincible. They're scared because they know what they've lost. And now, everyone else will know too. Jaya Choi stood in Earth's new combined command center, surrounded by screens showing messages from across the galaxy. After Moon Su revealed the truth about the elite, many Deathworld species had broken their silence. Now, they were all working together. The command center was a strange but wonderful sight. Creatures from different Deathworld planets worked side by side with humans. Some had thick, armored skin for surviving intense heat. Others had multiple arms to handle high gravity. Each species brought unique strengths from their home worlds. The elite never imagined we would work together, Jaya said to her alien allies. They thought keeping us apart would make us weak. Instead, it gave us time to grow stronger. A message arrived from Do-hyun, who was leading a mission on a volcanic planet that the elite considered too dangerous to visit. He had found more allies there, creatures who lived in temperatures that would melt elite ships. The rebellion is spreading, his message said. Every Deathworld species has stories about elite ships appearing, calling their planets too dangerous, and trying to lock them away from the galaxy. They're all ready to fight back. Jaya looked at the battle plans on her main screen. The elite controlled the galaxy through perfect order and careful rules. But they had never faced a group that could break those rules, that could survive in conditions they thought impossible. All teams, report status, she called out. The responses came in from across the galaxy. Each Deathworld species had found ways to use their natural strengths against the elite's artificial perfection. On water worlds, sea-dwelling species disrupted elite shipping lanes through areas the elite thought were too deep to patrol. In high-gravity systems, heavily built creatures attacked elite bases from directions their defenses weren't designed to watch. Near giant stars, heat-resistant species disabled elite sensor networks that couldn't handle the radiation. Their perfect systems are failing, Moon Su reported from his station. They never planned for enemies who could attack from environments they can't survive in. The elite tried to respond, but their carefully organized fleets couldn't handle fighting in so many dangerous places at once. Their ships needed constant maintenance in safe zones. Their crews couldn't operate in harsh conditions for long periods. Every time they retreated to safe space, they lost more control. Jaya received an urgent message from Tadawon. His fleet had found something important. The main control center for elite environmental systems. The elite had built it in what they thought was a perfect location, far from any natural dangers, but that meant it had no natural defenses. This is our chance, Jaya told the alliance leaders. The elite depend on controlled environments. Without their environmental systems, they'll have to face natural conditions like everyone else. The plan came together quickly. Each Deathworld species would attack elite positions near their own territories, forcing their ships to retreat. Meanwhile, Do-hyun would lead a small team to disable the environmental control center. The elite would have to choose between facing natural space conditions or losing their power over the galaxy. Remember, Jaya told the alliance forces, we don't need perfect weapons or ships. We just need to be stronger than they expect. Nature made us tough for a reason. As the attack began, Jaya watched the galaxy map fill with signs of rebellion. The elite's perfect order was breaking down. In its place, something new was growing. An alliance of species who understood that real strength came from facing challenges, not hiding from them. The elite homeworld looked beautiful but strange to Ho-Yun Park as she stood on the bridge of Taiwan's ship. Everything was perfectly balanced. The temperature, the gravity, the air. But to her, it felt unnaturally still, like a picture rather than a living world. The final battle had not gone as anyone expected. When Do-hyun's team reached the environmental control center, They found the elite scientists already waiting. But instead of fighting, Dr. X asked to talk. "We have been watching your alliance," the elite scientist said, his perfect features showing worry for the first time. "You have shown us something we had forgotten. Perhaps we were wrong about strength." He-Yun walked through the elite city now, seeing how they lived. Everything was controlled, measured, planned. The elite had tried so hard to make a perfect world that they had lost the ability to handle anything unexpected. "Your people chose this path thousands of years ago," He-Yun said to Dr. X as they walked. "You tried to make yourselves perfect, but there is no such thing as perfect in nature. Everything must be able to change, to adapt." The elite council had gathered to hear what the Deathworlders had to say. Jia showed them Moon Su's evidence, how their quest for perfection had made them weaker, not stronger. Du-Hyun explained how Deathworld species had grown stronger by facing challenges, not hiding from them. "We don't want to destroy your civilization," Ta-Wan told them. "We want to help you remember what you've lost. The ability to adapt, to face challenges, to grow stronger through difficulty." The council members looked at each other, their perfect faces showing fear. "But how can we change?" one asked. "We have made ourselves dependent on these controlled environments. If they fail, we will die." That's when He-Yun stepped forward with her plan. "We can help you change slowly," she said. "Small adjustments over many generations. Your bodies still remember how to adapt. That ability is just sleeping, not gone. We can wake it up again." The elite listened as He-Yun explained how they could slowly adjust their environmental systems, not to break them, but to help the elite gradually grow stronger. They would start with tiny changes, a little more gravity one day, a slightly different temperature the next. "It will take time," she told them, "but you can become strong again. Not perfect, but adaptable. And while you change, we will help protect you." The council debated for 3 days. In the end, they agreed. The elite would give up their control over the galaxy. Instead, a new council would form, with members from all species, elite, Deathworlders, and everyone in between. 1 month later, He-Yun watched as the first group of elite children played in a room where the gravity changed slightly throughout the day. They were awkward at first, but they were learning. Their bodies were remembering how to adapt. "They're like seeds that were kept in a box," she told Du-Hyun. "Now they finally have a chance to grow." The galaxy was changing too. The elite's perfect trade routes now allowed ships from all worlds. Their cities began to include spaces where conditions could vary. Slowly, they were learning that strength came in many forms. "We thought this would end in a fight," Jaya said during the first meeting of the new Galactic Council. "Instead, it ended with understanding. Sometimes, the greatest victory is helping your enemy become better." As He-Yun looked out at the elite homeworld one last time before leaving, she saw the first small changes. The perfect gardens now had some wild plants. The always clear sky had a few clouds. It wasn't perfect anymore, but it was alive. And that was better.